Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, spending my birthday with my brother's dead best friend. By the time you may read this, the days where he spontaneously appears will be near. I've changed my name and the people mentioned for safety purposes, and made it to protect me, my family, and friends. To start, my name is Samuel. I've had these on and off experiences with a spirit of someone I once knew. But the time I seem to see it most, is on my birthday. Background. When I was younger, I was in a garage band with my brother, and a couple of his friends. We'll call my brother Edgar. My brother's friends, who we'll call Jeremy and Fabian, played in it. I was the youngest in the group. We played at high school parties, even though I was only starting 6th grade, and they were already juniors. Our most popular song, because, 1, it was the only bass line I knew without a feeling of lost confidence, and 2, because it was Jeremy's favorite, was Hotel California by the Eagle. Everyone was able to at least nod their head to it, and it was a song that I could personally never, ever get tired of. I felt like we had it down good. For a garage band at least. It always made our connection stronger, no matter how many times we played it. Anyways, we always had a tradition of toppings and froyo for birthdays. Whenever it was anyone's birthday, we would grab frozen yogurt, and for however old you are, that's how many toppings you had. You had to finish the dessert that night, or else it would end up somewhere you wouldn't want to find it. One year, my brother found his peanut butter chocolate froyo in his new shoes. The only twist, is we would find the worst toppings. So the froyo could be bomb, but we would put grass, and gummy worms, then garlic, and such, you get the idea. Well, one year for my birthday, back in 2011, Jeremy was the one to retrieve my horrible snack. We were close, and he always found a way to make my dessert more delicious than my stomach was expecting. He drove a Triumph Daytona 955i motorcycle, something he took more pride in than anything else. He used most of his college savings on it, and never let anyone ride it unless it was him or his father. However, that night had been especially stormy, and washed out most of the main highways. He left around 7:30, right before the power went out, and by the time we had heard the news, it was already 8:30. Jeremy was hit in a hit-and-run accident, presumably by a much larger vehicle, because by the time the police had showed up around 8, he was DOA, dead on arrival. I had seen nothing like it before. His motorcycle was clean across the intersection of the highway, his body seemingly crushed, his helmet nearly cracked in two. I could see the bag filled with my dessert nearly inches away from his body, and immediately I blamed his death on myself. For weeks, even after the funeral, even after going back to school, even after seeing a therapist, even after all of this, I still put myself to blame for what happened to my brother's best friend. Well, before I even notice, it's been almost a year since what happened. Schools started up, September begins to shift weathers as October approaches, and my birthday draws near. This is when it began happening. September 29th, late Saturday night around 11:30, as I tried drifting to sleep, a loud motorcycle rages outside of my mother's townhouse and seems to get louder and louder. I couldn't move. My eyes darted around the room. Is the TV on? No. Is my sister on her phone in the bed next to me? No. Am I dreaming? I take a heavy, wheezing breath through my mouth, the noise only getting continually louder. I sit up, coughing moments later. I glanced outside. The sun's up. I turn my attention towards my sister's bed. She's gone, and her bed is made. I panted, glancing at my phone. I clicked the home button, and read it, 9:35 a.m. After that, even more weird occurrences began to happen. I practiced my bass guitar even after the band split, for obvious reasons, to calm myself down a bit. I would always tune it for different bands. An example would be that I tune to a darker, more metal sound when playing Pink Floyd, or tune higher when playing Led Zeppelin for the coarse, hard sound the bass produced. However, whenever I would lay my bass on its guitar stand, I would come back either a few hours after or a day after, and it would be tuned back to the pitch I assumed it was my older sister, who always took interest in what I played, but I couldn't shake the feeling. The only person in the band that couldn't tune a bass by ear was Fabian, who played the drums. But Edgar lived with my dad 35 minutes away. And my sister would hang out with her friends every so often, and on days where everyone left the small house, it was still tuned to the default tuning by the time I got back. I thought it was a far reach, but I felt like it was Jeremy. Like he was taking care of me like he used to. Other things began happening too. Like the disappearance of my picks, and my vinyls being shifted around during the night. I had even had my ukulele fall completely over even after it was placed in its holder secularly. But what began to scare me, was the sleep paralysis. A week before my birthday, I began to wake up in the middle of the night, or at least what I thought to be very late, and watched a large black figure stare at me as I laid there in fits of 10 to 15-minute panic sessions. I would wake up in the morning, having the sensation of 1,000 emotions. I felt like I had to throw up, and felt the sides of my temples burn and thump with horrible headaches. But what always confused me was my brother's texts. Edgar would say, "Hey, good morning kiddo, hope you slept good and feel good today. Have a great day." Even though before that week, he had only texted me a picture of a dog or two on and off and didn't bother to call much. But it wasn't until the night of my birthday where my mind had pieced this puzzle together. I usually spent the day after my birthday with my dad to celebrate, even though he didn't particularly like me. It was mostly a celebration of me with my siblings, Edgar, my sisters, one through my mom and dad, two through just my dad, and my step-siblings. But the night of my birthday, I felt especially down, because I knew what today was. I felt a bad feeling wash over my body in waves all day, and it wasn't until the night where I felt it hit rock bottom. I knew what was to come, and this feeling was just something I couldn't shake. I wish I could say this was just a story, this was all fake and pretend. Because that's what I wish all of this was. But it wasn't, and it's still not. What happened that night is something that happens the night of all my birthdays. Something that I guarantee will keep occurring on my birthday, and something I expect to keep approaching me. That night, exactly a year after Jeremy had died, I went to sleep at 12:30 a.m. I awoke, not too surprised at my sudden feeling of extreme vulnerability. I felt I was locked down, like I was some sociopathic patient at a ward who would stab someone with my front tooth and a spoon. My heart was at this point the only noise I heard until he was there. The dark figure was cast over me, a dark feeling of dread at the pit of my stomach, starting to churn because I now realized who this was. I wanted to whimper his name but I simply couldn't. I couldn't. His name hadn't entered my mouth in a year, and the only time I had wanted to say it, it only came out as a simple huff. I realized a quiet hum had been vibrating from his figure and I recognized the melody after a few seconds of its out-of-tune shaking tone. Hotel California. It could be a far reach, and maybe I'm just pulling at strings when I say this because I miss my best friend. But I have a feeling he sings it to me for my birthday, so no matter how old I am, I will never forget him. Since that day, the same thing has happened every year. To this day, I know I hear him humming it to me on my birthday and I refuse to believe otherwise. Because even if the humming isn't there, and the only noise audible is my heartbeat, it still draws me closer and closer to him, every time I hear it. For the past 2 years, I found small items within my house which left me without shock, only a longing for his company. 2 years again was a small receipt, with a simple 11 scribbled on the back. Last year, a small white plastic spoon. My birthday is approaching, and I know what to expect. I feel numbed. I'm never prepared, but I am ready to listen to the sweet evil moan of a song I once played without a feeling of lost confidence. Spending my birthday with my brother's dead best friend,